A new year rings in a new season in the OSA World Cup scene, and as tradition calls, we have the extraterrestrial key smashers leading us into it. 41 countries have stood up to the challenge to be crowned Osamania 7K World Champions. Welcome to the Osamania 7K World Cup 2024 Qualifiers Mappool Showcase. I am Sergio85, and with me in the commentary booth is Mifa.
Hello. It's been a while ever since we deal with the 4K World Cup on the last year, but now we're starting a new year with a bang. And this bang we call like the 7-key version of the Osamania, and 2024 is gonna be something else that we come prepared for you.
Well, if it's anything like last year's, I think there are going to be a lot of surprises. Maybe some of the favorites that we had from last year will be laying a bit low this time around or something like that. But like that's with any World Cup really. Like there's some layer of unpredictability, especially with the roster changes and all of that stuff. And there have been spicy roster changes, which like if you just saw the list on the wiki page. Ah man, like I already have a favorite grand finals matchup.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's going to be tough when you consider the fact that the 41 teams in this World Cup in particular, I believe only top 24 teams will be able to move on to the next stage of the tournament. So the stakes are high, especially for the middle or the underdogs, you would say, to be able to compete forward into the tournament. So we'll see how it goes when we reach to that point.
Yeah, and you did hear that right. There are 24 teams qualifying, an expansion from the round of 16 format we had last year, especially with the immense number of countries that signed up last year. Like, I think we got to that point where we should expand it, and basically all of the World Cups now will have the same number of weeks, if I am not mistaken. And also, given the round of 24 format, if I am not mistaken, the top 8 teams are going to be having a pretty decent advantage because they will be skipping the following weekend and will be starting the World Cup with a harder pool, essentially.
Yeah, they'll get a free pass for the next week. So essentially, if you do very well or even super well for the qualifiers, you won't be doing anything for the next week and just watch the other 16 teams will to be advancing forward to the next round, basically.
Well, anyways, I think we've done enough stalling.
And yet, so here we are with the first stage of the 7-key qualifier here. We got Mini Short by Ruby Miner. This is charted by Paul Kappa for, I guess you would kind of say that this is more of a technical issue, almost an early round sort of like the thing. It's like 4.5 stars, but the OD is actually pretty high for this one. And you would think that this would be not too much of a challenge, because what it essentially does, if you remember from last year's Grand Final, I think it was Minerva, has almost the same whack stuff, except this is very much an early round.
Yeah, there are lots of pretty wacky patterns in this chart. I mean, like what we've seen from Paul Kappa starts from last year, right? There are some pretty technical stuff here, like we see these mini jacks that you had the Grace Notes a few moments earlier. But at least, relatively speaking, this is pretty still in the more comfortable range, especially for the higher level players. But I mean, this isn't comfortable at all. Like the density probably will be a problem for some of the more mid to lower end teams, especially if they'll be fighting for the spots later, fighting for the spots in the bracket. There we go.
Yeah.
And then here we go again with these Grace Note chords Uh, you shouldn't be cheesing this, especially with the OD.
Yeah, OD 8.5. When you cheese some of these patterns, you would just you would bound to get a lot of like 200s and whatnot. You almost cannot cheat the patterns in itself. When you see the patterns like that, you would almost try to hit it legitimately, or else you would pretty much in a dire spot where you're losing so much accuracy on that one spot.
And that ends the first stage of this qualifier set. And also, this is a pretty fast one. Like compared to last year, I think this is a bit shorter in terms of length. So maybe, but it's only like what, a few seconds of difference, really. Now let's move on to the
Yeah,
second stage, and I think this is a pretty familiar artist to a lot of people here. We have Vortex by F777, and if I am not mistaken, this should be our more faster uh more faster rise chart here.
yeah. This is our stream-based pick, and well, you would think of streams, you would more so refer to a little more the speedier stuff or kind of a delay stuff, like something like that. And this has the mix of the bunch, except it would compare this to like last year, which is also by the same artist. But this time around you're taking a sweet time on this one. There's not too much of a hard part. It's just consistently hard from start to finish.
Like some sort of consistent difficulty really throughout the entire chart. And something to note as well is that at least from what I remember from last year's chart, the stairs are a bit more rolly compared to what we have right now, where you're basically doing split rolls or split stairs, whatever you call it. And now we're getting into the more bigger sweeps, and those are pretty difficult to pretty difficult to hit if you're trying to get accuracy out of it.
Yeah, we're entering like pretty much a break section, but once it starts to get it in once again, and even then, I don't think there's any more breaks after this, especially with streams getting kind of a bit awkward. There's some swings here and there, but also you would mix it with a sporadic, just normal two or three note core streams like that. It depends. It gets a little bit more rollier this time with I guess with a more full blown sweep on
I think that's
one
like
egg.
yeah. Yeah, here we go. Like that increase in density, like it's a pretty relative increase. It shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, like that gap, I think that's like one column gap. Like I think some people have problems getting some accuracy on that part. I mean, back when I was playtesting this, that was pretty tricky because like you're more led to play an entire stair like as an entire sweep and not something like you're going to skip an entire column or something like that.
Yeah, I'd say even with the given the difficulty, I would say even with this OD is pretty standard. I guess you would call it more generous when you hit the streams like that on that kind of OD. I guess it's more a little bit more forgiving on the patterns itself. So. And I guess we're moving on to our stage 3. I believe this is also our generic hybrid pick. This is by Wonky, Altair by CXNX. I guess you would kind of call this an original or some sort, but you know, when you say that this is generic hybrid, it's got everything in it. Although it's entirely more section-based like of the hybrid. You get LNs and you get some core sims on one part. So I guess this is pretty much I guess you would kind of say it's more of a farm in terms of accuracy, but not really by much because it's OD8.
Oh yeah. And I mean OD8, and you have to remember, especially this is a hybrid chart. While this is way more reliant on rice notes, there are enough LNs here to lower your score if you're not careful with your LN accuracy. And we're getting into the more noodly part of this chart. And you also mentioned, like, at least for the more generic hybrids, like, these are pretty straightforward to play. This is something you'd maybe expect in the rank, like some ranked charts in general. They're probably more comfortable, but at least for the charts that we have in this qualifier set, like, there is a level of abrasiveness, and you're seeing it right here. More these symmetric patterns that we see here every now and then. They are deceivingly abrasive.
The structure is simple enough to the point that you can actually just play like a normal you would play as a rice or just generic hybrid, really. But at that point, you would also need to watch out for the long note sections on one part, basically, because it doesn't really give you much of a room for a breather when LN does kick in.
And here we go, like more of these heavy hitting LNs. Like these patterns, those LNs are actually pretty technical. Like, if we're like looking at a more, let's say, LN density chart, like those patterns, like, you could probably just go hit them like just a plain old stare. But with the OT in this chart and with the rice support as well, like, you're kind of forced to hit them legit.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. When the pattern does kick it like that, you would normally see that the pattern does get a little bit more straightforward. But I guess you can kind of call it unorthodox. But at that point, you just really have to constrain yourself to hitting one patterns and whatnot. And I guess the ending has some off snaps to it too, so you really don't want to hit it straightforward. But I guess that would believe that's our stage 3, and all I can say,
oh boy,
if you thought that this the BPM is pretty standard for stage 3, just imagine if you cut the BPM in half and you get stage 4, and I believe we can show you how absurd stage 4 would be, and it's going to be Stargazer. This is our coordination LN. You would kind of almost say that LN release pick, but here you go.
Stage 4 in this World Cup qualifier set is designed to practically combine LN coordination and release. So this is more of a general LN control chart. Also, just a comment really on the song choice here. Like, I'm pretty sure whenever we see Stargazer, we'd be expecting like a chord jack chart. Like,
oh yeah,
not
this
LN.
is yeah. Well, I mean, we have Stargazer SP13 on BMS, which essentially just like a 4 to 5 note chords every now and again at the basic last 30 seconds of the chart. This is kind of that, except this is backloaded.
Very backloaded. And I just gotta mention, this is my favorite chart of this entire set. And I'm not sure if the players would agree to this, especially those who have played the previous 2 World Cups that we had Rainy Girl. Like the coordination type of those charts are pretty different to what we see here right now. This is leaning more towards like semi-inverted LN stairs or something like that. The reading here is pretty different. We have a pretty fast BPM as well compared to what we had from the previous 2 qualifiers.
And I guess most people are gonna tank right here.
Oh yeah. Fields are a pain to hit.
Yeah, just ascending to descending LN really. You coordinate the LNs, but you also hit them as you kind of normally hit ascending chords and then descending chords. Except one LN is gonna be whole one after another. It's just on a whole different coordination right here.
I just saw Maple Syrup comment that like somewhere, like the stairs are apparently the easiest part. I guess I'm pretty different in a way. this section here, I'd say is pretty straightforward, but it's just so backloaded. Like you have to be super careful. Try not to drop your combo here.
And even then, I so forgot to mention that the OD is also on the high side for this one. It's not you would normally see LN coordination or release being OD 5 to 6, but this is 6.5, so this is definitely on the high side.
It is, but it's not the stupid kind of high though. Like if we're pushing this OD7, I mean that will be the kind of stuff I would be putting out. But it's really how the Mapple selectors really wanted. Like you wanted the accuracy, but you want to give them some sort of leniency, really, to at least be able to move around because this chart isn't exactly the most comfortable to play. Anyways, let's move on to our stage 5, and we have a pretty good one here. Chart remembering synergy matrix, and this is our mixed rice pick of this qualifier set. There is
you heard it.
There's a ton of variety in the patterning here. I mean, we're already seeing quite a lot of mini jacks, a lot of bursts, some heavy hitting chords. Though I do think that a lot of the players will be having fun with this chart.
Oh yeah, especially when the variety for this chart, it actually goes a long way for this one. There's not like one section that is like almost copy pasted or something like that. It's just different every time. Even though there's some similarities here and there just by symmetrical patterns, but every section feels like you're playing a brand new patterns here and there. But you see some kind of struggle with hitting the sweeps and bursts and whatnot in the mini jacks like that. It could impose some threats, but not too crazy about it.
I guess it's an interesting question to ask, really, at least for the players. Like, do you prefer, like, whenever you see mini jacks, do you prefer the chord to happen before the jack, or have the jack note lead to a chord? Like, which do you prefer? Because like this chart has both of them, and I'm not sure what the players would find easier to hit. And also, I just see like a few spacebar mini jacks as well, and those are pretty much like the favorite thing I want to see whenever watching these Mappool showcases like this.
Yeah, especially when the chords are really hard hitting enough. I believe you almost cannot discern what players would really want to have the mini jack on before the chord or after the chord. It just plays almost the same, but except the fact that the I guess in 7 key you would normally try to make sure that the chord the mini jacks are before the mini jack happens. It just lands the chord first and then the mini jack. But I guess in the 7 key sense, there's a lot more pattern variety into it.
All right, now we're done with 5. Now let's go for the 6th one, and this is going to be our more chord stream oriented. Wait a minute. This is number 7, I think. Yeah, this is number 7.
I believe we skipped the stage for this one, but I believe we're just gonna get into it. This is our, I guess you would kind of say the more mixed LN pick. We already have mixed rice, and now this is the mix-up. Yeah.
And of the LN oriented picks here in this pool, this is the more, let's say, physical, the more dense chart. Personally, I find this easier to get an S on. But that's what you get with coordinate, really. I
guess when you say more density put into plays with LNs, you would normally play them as a dense LNs, not really a coordinated, because it's score V2. This just, you almost played like a Rise, but you have LNs into it. I guess that's the nature of getting scores that are getting S or beyond that.
But you do get the elements of a more LN control skill set here, like the coordination release aspect. Like you see this pattern, like if you're playing it, you're a more experienced player. Like you probably just play them like a regular old chord drill. But these are LNs. You have to be super careful with your accuracy here.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't really have to like be too relaxed on here because there's some release patterns being played into it. Like you would see the some of these, even though they're straight up coordination, but then there's also some sporadic. I guess the erratic releases into it. You kind of normally don't want to tunnel vision to it too a lot though. Although there's some bits of mini jack that might throw people off though.
They're, I say like they're more release. I mean, no, reverse shield kind of thing. I guess some people might mistake it for a mini jack, and you have to be careful reading wise, especially that this chart really likes to transition from a more dense LN to a more sparse LN kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of LNs in this chart, and the patterning is super dynamic, and you're being kept on your toes. Like you should not relax. Try to keep your attention really because it's so easy to mess up.
Yeah, that is for sure. And given OD6 is pretty much you would normally go hand in hand with LN density pick or more of a mixed LN pick. But I guess given that this is also stage 7, I believe we can go straight to back to where it belongs, and we're going back to a stage. And welcome to Den's core stream pick, and welcome to BMS almost.
Yeah, and this is a chart by one of the Mappool selectors here, No Name. And with a lot of the chord stream oriented charts that we've had over the past, what, 2 7K World Cups? Like, this is, I'd say, the one favored the most by the accuracy heavy people, aside from the chord jacks. And I'm expecting that this should be scoring pretty high once we see the results.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like given the dense core stream, it should be really easy to autopilot yourself into one point, but you also have to remember that these also have some bursts like that. You would really normally not to be too complacent about those, because there's also some 1/3 and some 1/8 bursts mixed in between the core streams. You kind of don't want to let yourself up.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to trip up if you're not paying attention to that transition. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like it should be somewhere after the break, and it's so easy to here we go. Like it's a bit of a polyrhythm really. Like those stairs, you have to be like, at least if this should be second nature to like a lot of players, but still, like it's something you have to take note of. It's pretty easy to lose track of your rhythm.
Also, when you say that this is should be relatively high to score on, also you have to remember that this is also OD 8.5, which gonna be a little bit of a challenge to score high in the first place, especially with those kind of bursts that you really can't cheat them.
And here the ending quarter, like it's a pretty dense, quite dense section. And I think some of the players might want to manage their stamina, especially in the break section. Try to relax a bit more, loosen up a bit, because that part is pretty demanding.
Yeah, it's not quite the BMS ending, but you would normally see some denser patterns, but not as harsh as you would think it is. But I think with that, there are already like 7 stages, and I guess we're moving on to the final stage of the qualifiers. We got Stuhu by Raimukun, Chai by Liju. This is our mini tiebreaker-ish pick. Well, you have it in the intro. There's a lot of things going on already.
Indeed, a lot of things. And this is, you already saw the charter name. It's Liju. Like, we're expecting like beautiful patterning here overall, like aesthetically pleasing patterning. But on your fingers, oh, good luck.
Yeah, there's a lot of abrasive patterns, especially with those suites that you already see, and then some more of a polyrhythmic, almost kind of delay-ish patterns. But even then, the rise by itself doesn't really pose too much of a threat, because when we say that this is almost a mini tiebreaker-ish because all those things happening all at once. You have to remember that there are also some sporadic elements here and there that might you actually have to transition into one part one after the other.
Also, this part is deceivingly hard. Like you saw, I don't think that you should lose track here because the rice notes can easily trip you up, like trip up your holding power.
Oh yeah, there's some bits of anchoring here and there, and also some of the reverse shield that might actually give you some edge to it, but the elements by itself are already pretty confusing, and then you get into this, which more dense patterns on the LNs and whatnot.
Very dense, and you see those triple jacks as well. Very abrasive patterning overall in this chart. Very tricky to read as well.
And then the core strings by itself, which are very one-hand at most, but it's very dense to the point that you would normally not struggle the entire way through.
But again, like at least this section is very, very satisfying to hit. So if you're one of the players really be able to pretty much manage your stamina. Also that ending, yeah, I forgot about that ending. Be careful, try not to choke that. Try not to choke.
I've also tried not to forget about the ending as well, because I would believe that that's a 20 notes being missed if you do not hit them at most.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all of the qualifiers. We already have 8 stages that are really, really spicy for the players to dig in.
Compared to last year, I cannot really say if this is like an easier set or a harder set, because there are definitely a lot of charts here that are different enough. Like they test a pretty different skill set to what we had last year, especially with the change in direction with how stage 4 is being done. So the players are up for a pretty interesting challenge here.
Yeah, even if you look at the differences in between the qualifier structure in particular, I believe you would normally see that stage 1 is a bit different than most, especially when you consider the fact that the last year's Grand Finals also has that kind of thing. Stage 4, you would normally see that this is more of a coordination, but I guess the coordination is kind of an understatement. So, and then the stage 7 and stage 8 are different enough to the point that it might look easy when you look at it on the screen, but it's kind of not really when you play them, because it's different enough that it would impose some score deviancy from that too. So you would have to practice a few times to get a grasp on what you were going to be playing at. So it really is for the entirety of the qualifiers.
That is and for the results and the round of 24 Mappool Showcase.
Yeah, I believe we do have I mean, once we get to pass from the qualifiers, we get to see like the round of 24 once we already reveal from the qualifiers scores once we get to until the next week. And I also believe that we're given that the round 24 is going to be spicy here on out, I believe once we get to 41 teams in total, I believe there will be 17 teams that are be fighting on the line just to get a spot for the round of 24 too. So for the underdogs, really try your best and do your best for the qualifiers, and I believe that would be all the roads for the qualifiers. And I believe we don't have much more to say other than maybe for the teams that are be participating, we'll have to wait for the schedules and do their reschedules and whatnot for their teams to be able to play in their designated time. So do you have any other words to say, Suchu, before we close out the stream?
Well, just a massive shout out to the Mappool selection team and the custom charters who made the stuff that we've seen over the past half hour or so. And to the players, good luck and have fun with the qualifiers. I hope that you get a run that you'll be proud of once we see the results next weekend. And that should be
Yeah.
it for us. This is Sir Q85 and me in the commentary booth. See you guys next time.